Good evening. Been a long couple days. Photographed the wedding yesterday. Beautiful ceremony. Tried to do my thing. It was a fun time. But I need to have we need to have a conversation. Oh, Uncle Curdy Kurt. Let's have this conversation real quick. I just need to talk about this for a second. I won't be long. Day 43 of 100 days. Welcome to CNN. I'm Kurt Kennedy. I'll be your host. Let's go in. All right, I just want to have a discussion about YouTube comment section etiquette. All right. We live in a day and age where a lot of people use social media. And we live in a day and age where some people have more contact with a digital human being than an actual one. Or you build relationships with digital people, avatars and text, and not really people. And one of the things I've appreciated about YouTube and just comment sections in general is you're able to dialogue with the person. Even some celebrities who use like social media, you can say stuff. Sometimes they'll respond back to you, and it's almost like it's pretty interesting. But one of the things I've noticed, in particular about comment sections, and especially now YouTube that I'm posting more videos, is there is a sense where, and I don't know where this comes from, but there is a sense where people who disagree with what you put in your video pretty much expect you to engage with them back and forth, almost to either convince them that you're right or to accept the fact that you're wrong. Now, that might not be what people's motives are, but we need to have a discussion about the YouTube comment section and some etiquette. All right. Most of us, well, I'll speak for myself. I make videos often. I'm not teaching a seminary class. I'm not in the pulpit. I usually take some videos, connect some dots, and make some statements about what I think is happening or a way to process some things. I usually am pretty careful about making connections to things that I say because I know that some people are listening. I have members of my church that watch this channel and stuff like that. So they hear me week in and week out. And that could be a good or bad thing. But what I notice is that in the comment section of YouTube, in particular, if someone disagrees with you, there is a way in which that situation happens. And when you're trying to be like, all right, cool, I'm old enough to remember agree to disagree. But now there's almost this demand that you interact with them in a certain way. So I want to just say two quick things about YouTube comment sections. And this I think goes for any type of thing. So particularly when you disagree with what someone says, or if you disagree with something I say. First rule, it's really not that serious. It really isn't. This is a YouTube channel, mine is, where I am taking the Bible, making some statements and connecting some dots, right? It's really not that serious. Like you can listen to what I say or anyone on YouTube. I disagree with a ton of stuff that I see. But you know what I don't do? I don't feel like I need to go in and make a long comment in your YouTube section explaining to you why I disagree, why I think as if you're leading people astray. I just don't do that. I don't really care enough. Like if I disagree, I just disagree. If I like your stuff, I might be like, bro, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. But there are some people who feel the need to almost give you a semi dissertation. And let's be, and I don't know how you do it. I normally, YouTube for me, when I'm reading notifications, it's usually on my phone. I don't go on my computer and look up YouTube stuff. I don't do it. So when I get a comment on a video, it's on my phone. So when I have to scroll on my phone to read your entire comment, and in all seriousness, you're doing too much. Do you realize that there is no pastor that you agree with, no, your pastor, no theologian that you love, any credible, there is no one who has always said everything that's accurate and right and so forth. Your favorite theologian has gotten things wrong. And from commentary, listen, most commentaries that you read, that I read, are not taken, it is speculation from the text that you get, right? And you improve upon that. The Bible doesn't tell you all this stuff. Let me give you an example. Think about this for a second. How many verses on parenting are there in the Bible? Parenting, like parenting, not children, I'm talking about parenting. How many verses are there in the Bible? Right? Do you know that I think I could be wrong, but there are less verses in the Bible about parenting than there are about sexuality. Far less in the Bible. You will get some proverbs, spare the rod your child, blah, 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 train a child up in the way he should go. You get a couple proverbs in the New Testament. You get Ephesians 6, for fathers, do not exasperate your children. And it says the same thing in Colossians. You have less passages in the Bible on parenting, something that is significant to people, than you do on sexuality. And yet you will read books on parenting from Christians that are this thick. Where did you get all that information from? Most commentaries that you and I read are the guy who knows the language, who knows the scripture. He's speculating on things. One of my favorite theologians, Tom Schreiner, I had lunch with him one day, and he said to me this. He said, you are free to speculate on what the Bible doesn't say or may not be clear on, as long as you don't contradict what it does say, right? So a lot of times the stuff that you and I will read from whoever your favorite theologian is, Calvin, Arminian, Luther, whoever it is, Tim Keller, whoever it is, there's a degree in which there's some form of speculation. So when you disagree, cool, but it's really not that serious, fam. And some of you take your comments, take this so serious that you want to go back and forth and you want the person to engage with you. And if you're unwilling to do that long term, it's like somehow while you shut down the conversation, it's not that serious, fam. It's a YouTube video that you make to encourage believers. Most people get it. If I'm doing something in outright error, cool, make that known. I know that I do these videos publicly. You're going to respond publicly, but you're taking yourself way too serious if you need to explain to me all this stuff about what the Bible actually says. Now, that doesn't mean I'm right, but I've been a pastor for 15 years and I've been teaching the Bible. I've never been once called a heretic, and I've traveled the country and in some senses the world explaining the Bible, and have never been called that. I'm not going to all of a sudden accept it on YouTube of all places. It's a YouTube comment section, fam. If you disagree, cool, keep it moving. Or say like, hey, I don't know if I agree with that. Boom. I'm not going to read like something that took you 20 minutes to type. Because let's just be honest. When you type, especially if you're doing it on your phone, you make a lot of mistakes. You got to proofread it. So you're not just typing a comment. You're actually typing it, reading it, editing it, reading it again, editing it, reading it, and then you press send. It's just not that serious, man. It's not that serious. And you're not that important. Your interpretation is honestly not that important. You're not saving the world from a heretic theologian. So that's one thing. Here's the second thing, and this one may rub a little people the wrong way, but I'll explain what I mean. Here's the second point that we need to take into consideration. This idea of where does it say that in the Bible? Now, let me make sure you understand what I mean. The Bible is our rule of authority. We have to start with, is it biblical? Usually when we say, is that biblical, does the Bible affirm that? Does the Bible affirm what's being said? And sometimes the Bible it's biblical in the sense the Bible talks negative about it, but we have to do that, right? We have to be Bereans, look in the scriptures. But here is the problem, one problem with the where is that in the Bible, what Bible verse is that? That's not what the Bible is for. It doesn't give us a verse on everything that we believe to be true. We may use verses to make a connection or make a point, but it doesn't do that. The Bible does not give us every single thing that we think. There are people who will use the Bible to make contrary points. Let me just give some so you can understand. Some are like incidental and some are one more weighty, right? So here's some ones that are just kind of funky, right? The Bible doesn't tell me when to baptize my children. Now, some people say you got to do it at birth, depending on if you're a Presbyterian. The Bible doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all. Okay? The Bible doesn't tell me what eschatological position I should have. Even though people will use the scriptures to explain, and if you disagree, you could write a long YouTube comment explaining why they're wrong. But people will use the Bible to make those connections, and you and I will often pick a position that we think is okay and we'll agree with it. But the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't tell you how to structure your church service. Okay, if you want to take Acts 2, 42 through 47 and say, well, there were prayers, they were listening to the teaching, they were breaking bread together, and they're okay, fine. But most liturgies like you probably go to church, and here's probably what happens in your church. All right. You come in, you may have children's ministry, you take your kids right away, right? You go in for worship, there may be some time of announcements, a little break, then there's a message, and then afterwards there may be communion or something like that. Where do you get that structure from? You can't say that that's how you do church. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't tell you to put your kids in homeschool or not. It doesn't say that. There's some people will say, no, look at what it said. It doesn't say that, right? And then the Bible doesn't tell you a lot of serious things, but we believe them to be true. We think, hey, this is what it says. So when you say, where is that in the Bible? What verse is that? Don't get me wrong. We do need to let the Bible be our rule of authority. But there are going to be things and connections that are made that are not necessarily. If I felt like it, I could pull out a ton of commentaries from guys like Charles Spurgeon, a bunch of people that be like, this is a thought. Do you know what Charles Spurgeon? Charles Spurgeon, for those of you who don't know, he was a 19th century pastor and theologian, whom in some circles see him as a champion of the faith and about. Do you know Charles Spurgeon? Do you know how he would preach? He wasn't expository in the way that people say you're supposed to be now. Charles Spurgeon would take a portion of a verse and teach that. I've read some of his sermons, and he would take a portion of a psalm and do a whole sermon. That dude was called the Prince of Preachers, right? You do that today, they're screaming heretic. Like it's all contextualized. It's all of it. The Bible does not tell you to preach line by line preaching the way some people do. The Bible does. So again, there's a lot of things that you and I stand by that there's not a Bible verse for. Does the Bible tell? When I was at this family church, courtship, does the Bible tell you how to date and then get married? No, it doesn't. Now, you in your church, or you as a parent or someone, you might have a certain decorum in which you say, this is the way we do things. We used to call it courtship at a church that I was in, where you would go to the dad, ask, can you pursue his daughter? The dad would talk to his daughter, see what she thinks, come back and tell you, okay. And then you would, what verse is that, right? There's so many things that we do that the Bible doesn't have a verse for. It's not unbiblical. It's not unusual it's not unusual for that to happen. It's just not the way the Bible is. Some things, as Romans 12 says, we have to discern what the will of the Lord is, right? There are things that Hebrews 11, without faith, it is impossible to please God. And what is faith? That you believe that God exists and he rewards those who diligently seek him, right? So there's a sense where some stuff in the Bible is not going to be clear. That's why we have stuff like Romans 14. Paul said, look, one person thinks one day is holy. One person thinks no day is holy. Each one must be convinced in himself. So I'm saying that to say there are times when you're going to read things and believe things that the Bible doesn't necessarily have a verse for. So when I'm doing my videos, I may make some connections that help you see something, but it may not be a one-to-one thought like, oh, the Bible. And I'm not going to explain those because that's not what these videos are. These are me sharing my musings, and I'm grateful that so many of you are like, hey, I'm encouraged by that. But for those of you that are in the YouTube comment section, this is my appeal to you, that I'm not going to respond to any more lengthy comments. And it's not because I'm afraid to. I'm a gangster fan. I'm from the hood. I've been shot at point blank range. I've been locked up. I've been in isolation. I can handle a YouTube comment section. You know what it is? I don't feel like it. I don't feel like typing a long thing. And I've done that recently to explain to you what I meant. And once I do that, if you disagree, cool. I'm not offended at that. There might be stuff that if you had a channel, I would disagree. So I think, listen, we're taking ourselves a little too seriously. And I get it. In our culture, so I know someone's going to joke around and put a long comment on YouTube. I promise you I'm not going to engage. And if it's snarky and it's too much, I'll just erase it. It's not that serious, man. This is YouTube. This is a YouTube comment section. This isn't a place of dialogue. Yeah, we can talk a little bit, but it's really not that serious. If you disagree, hey, fam, don't know if I agree with that. Boom. Okay, thank you. Or if you even got to say that. I watch a ton of videos, and I do not agree with everything everyone says. But I don't make it a point to take the next 20 to 30 minutes type out why I don't agree, and then expect them to respond, and then type out another thing. It's just not that serious. It takes a while. I got fat fingers, man. It takes a while to type out stuff in YouTube and edit it and read it and all of that. I'm just not going to do it, fam. So, having said that, please recognize that this is YouTube. If you disagree with me or anyway, it's not that serious. It just isn't. Fine, disagree, but I'm not going to go back. This is seesaw, right? And be careful of saying, well, where does it say that in the Bible? Yes, the Bible is our authority. We have to start there. We need to start there. But there are plenty of things that you and I believe and do and stand by that the Bible gives no verses for. Here's one more that will offend a lot of you, I'm sure. The Bible does not say which political party to vote for. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't tell you who to vote for. Some of you are like, well, it's clear you can't vote for this because they stand for that. So you're meaning to tell me that in a two-party system that people's eternal destination will hinge on who they vote for? In and of itself. Like, people are going to go to hell because they voted Democrat or they voted Republican. I just don't think the Lord knows what people really mean and what they really represent, what they really believe, and he'll judge that. You and I don't always know. There's no passage in the Bible that says a ton of things that people, I think, are going to the mattresses for. It's just not that serious, man. There's no verse that covers all of that. So anyway, I'm going to watch the game. I usually don't make these types of videos, but I needed to say this. I'm out of here, y'all. Grace and peace.